So, and I'll come back in a minute.
Thank you. Okay, so thanks very much for being here. I'm here to talk to you about gender diversity in cybersecurity and what works. So my objective for today is really to help you understand the importance of gender diversity. I want to leave you feeling empowered and inspired to help, because there's so much work that can be done. So just to tell you a little bit about me, I'm an entrepreneur, a speaker, a mentor, and very soon to be published author. I've had 18 years in information security. I've built and sold my own 7-figure penetration testing company. I worked here at NCC as a director, and I've also worked at SensePost. But the bulk of my time in this industry has been as an entrepreneur. I'm an SC Magazine Awards judge for Europe. I'm a board advisor for Club CISO, and Club CISO has about 170 senior cybersecurity leaders in it, mostly from Europe. And we get to work on various projects. The project that we're working on at the moment is a metrics project. I was also a finalist at Cybersecurity Woman of the Year. I feel like some kind of like superhero when I say that, but it's a real honor to have been a finalist at that. And I'm also a mum to 3 kids, which is a very important job. So why does gender diversity in cybersecurity matter? And how did I come to do this? It was a question actually that you asked earlier. All of the work that I'm doing in gender diversity came by chance. It is a very topical subject right now. It's almost every time I open LinkedIn, there's an article on gender diversity in cybersecurity, or how to try and get more women into the industry. For me, it happened by chance. I read an ISC² report, and it showed the numbers of women in the industry globally. And that actually didn't bother me, but what bothered me was the fact that the numbers are decreasing year upon year. That was a huge concern. For me, having been in the industry for so long, I know lots of women in the industry, so I really didn't think it was as bad as it was. And so what I did, I was shocked enough to write a blog, and I spent a whole weekend writing that. I was absolutely scared stiff that I was going to get crucified when I published that on LinkedIn. But I was courageous, and I pressed the button on that. And I thought, this is my view, having been in the industry for so long, and it is the view of an entrepreneur, but I'm going to get it out there. And LinkedIn went mad in a good way. So I had loads of people commenting on the blog. It's still there for you to read if you want to. And I had lots of people reaching out, and this was all over the world. And when I did that, when that happened, I realized actually this was a huge issue. And I actually hadn't done up until that point. So I was asked to write more about that. I wrote a big piece for eForensics towards the end of the year. And then over Christmas time, I didn't have my kids for about a week and a half, and I thought I would do more research. So I did that and ended up writing a 15,000-word report on the global state of women in cybersecurity. And at that stage, all I thought was, actually, I'm just going to get it out on LinkedIn and help. And then something stopped me, and I suddenly thought, this is half a book. At 15,000 words, it's half a book. If I can go out and I can interview more women and men in the industry and tell more stories, I can add more value. And so I got onto LinkedIn again and put this, in fact, actually before getting onto LinkedIn, I phoned a publisher friend and I said, look, this is what I've done. Is it worth me doing this? And she said, you'd be crazy not to. So I then went to LinkedIn, put it out on LinkedIn. Everyone was like, yes, please do this. This is going to be great. And then I had the challenge of how do I raise the funds to get this book out there to publish it. So I got onto Kickstarter, did a project, my first project on there. I raised the money, got sponsorship, Bank of America is sponsoring, and then set about writing the book. So right now, the book is going to be published at the end of the year, or by the end of the year. I'm out there interviewing women and men globally, and the information that is coming back is absolutely fascinating. It's incredible. So some of that I'm going to be sharing with you today. So like I said, the numbers you can see on the graph here, this is what the numbers are looking like. They're declining year upon year, and it's not good enough. The reason why it's so important really comes down to 2 things. The first is economics. So McKinsey & Co reported that actually gender equality would add 26% or 28 trillion to global GDP by 2025. If we were to achieve that, that's what would happen. If we can make more money, we can do better things in the world. We can do more good. When women are in any business, profits do increase. There's more production, there's more innovation. We stay on schedule in accordance with budgets much more compared to homogenous teams. And when women are politically and economically empowered, societies are more stable. So for me, that's really good, but it doesn't really make much of a difference for security. It's just we are another industry. But on the performance side, when we do look at our industry specifically, this is what's key for me. Women see risk in a different way to men. We are wired differently, and that's because of the fact that we are programmed to give birth to children. Whether or not we do or don't, it doesn't matter. We see risk in a different way. And when we work together with men, we can do a better job when it comes to fighting cybercrime and actually assessing what our risk posture is. So for me, it's all about bringing that together, bringing a diversity of thinking into the talent pool and working together so we can up our game, because right now the cyber criminals are winning and that cannot continue. And there's actually a report here. If you look at this link here on the We Forum, there's a report and you can play with it, so you can look at the differences between everybody working together and how we see risk, and if you look at men only, how they see it, and then women only. It's really interesting. So as part of the book, what I've come to see is that really we have 5 challenges to address with this. And I'm going to go through these with you now. The first challenge is about developing talent. And whenever I talk about this, everybody always says, you've got to get into the schools earlier. We do have to get into the schools earlier, and we are. If I look at the UK, they are doing some fantastic work in UK schools. They haven't enforced it yet, but they have set the national curriculum so that girls are coding from 5 all the way through. The issue that we have here is that it's not enforced. It's not compulsory for schools to do this, and until that happens, we're still going to have a problem with girls not getting the same opportunities to all of this and increasing that pipeline. Raytheon and the National Security Alliance surveyed the career interests of educational preparedness for Gen Ys, for millennials, in 12 countries. And what they found was that 62% of men and 75% of women said that no secondary or high school computer classes offered the skills to help them pursue a career in cybersecurity. Now, for me, that's no surprise at all, and I'm sure it's not a surprise for you. I'll just give you a story here, actually. I've got 3 kids. My daughter is 14, and recently she had to choose her GCSE options. She is very artistic, and she chose art, she chose history, and she also chose computer science. And I swear there was no pressure on me or her father, who are both in this industry, to do that. She narrowed it down. She had a few others, like drama and things like that she was teetering on, but she picked those. When I went into school, she goes to an all-girls school, when I went into school and her teachers asked her what she'd chosen, she mentioned those 3 subjects. When computer science was mentioned, 3 teachers pulled a face, and one even leant forward and she said, "Do you know what? I can't understand anyone doing that subject." And I leant forward, having just delivered a panel that morning on why we need more women in the industry, and said, "I'm really the wrong person that you said that to. I work in technology, principally cybersecurity, and this is why we need more women in the industry." It didn't take long, literally it was a minute or 2 minutes, and once she heard that, she said, "Thanks so much, now I understand, will you come in and speak to the girls?" And of course I said, yes. She has another teacher, a lesson teacher, who is really cool. She definitely doesn't look like my old lesson teacher. And she said, when she asked my daughter, "What are you doing?" She said, "You know what, I think you should do what you love, what gets you out of bed in the morning," which is something that I completely agree with. She said, if you do pick computer science, I think that's really smart because it is the future. This is the now. Technology is the future, but it's also the now. And I know attitudes like that will change as teachers get younger and they're consuming technology much more. But right now, things like this are going on in schools. Today I heard from someone in the room about his daughter who wanted to take computer science. She still does, and her plan is to go and work for Google when she's older. But her school had an issue with the curriculum. They were still teaching ICT, and ICT is moving to computer science. The school weren't ready to do that because the school wasn't. They didn't want to do it, so she wasn't able to do that. So there are huge issues in schools in the UK. Globally, it's a different kettle of fish, and I can't go into that now, but certainly in the book I do look at other countries like India who have a completely different culture and program for getting women into the education system and building the pipeline, and Israel as well. So some really exciting things actually that are being done in both those countries. Oops. When we look at universities, we have to build the talent there. So if you can work on the schools, get them into the universities, that's great. Where we are now, though, is that universities are failing, by and large, the students there. Most of the time I'm mixing with CISOs. The CISOs will tell me they're not prepared, they're learning out-of-date technology. If they are learning technology, it could be 10 to 15 years out of date. It's not a case of the technology is moving so fast that they can't keep up. They are not being prepared for it. It's unacceptable. My eldest has graduated. I know how much it cost him. And the fact that they are not coming out into the workforce ready is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. I feel very strongly about that. In computer science in the UK, we have 123 UK institutions, higher education institutions that offer computer science. There were 91,565 undergraduates, and that's across all the years in 2013 to 14. 19% of them were female, and computer science accounts for 3.5% of all UK graduates. However, this is such a problem. In the UK, 11% are unemployed 6 months after graduating, and it is the highest unemployment rate out of all of the degrees that are being taught in the UK. Now, a study that has bothered the government sufficiently that a study has been done. But again, that is totally unacceptable. Technology is the now. How many times do we have to hear about the levels of skill shortages that we have? Which brings me on to my next kind of slide. Global spending is set to rise to 1 trillion from 2017 to 2021. And the cost of cybercrime is rising too. So between the latest reports that I saw were between $2 and $3 trillion. Cybersecurity job postings are increasing. We are hearing that they are increasing 3.5 times faster than IT jobs, and that by 2020 we're going to have 6 million vacancies in cybersecurity. It's no wonder we've got all of this crime, more awareness and so forth, so there's a big demand for it. The main shortages are, according to IC², security analyst, security auditor, security architect, forensic analyst, and also incident handler. Yet, how many times do I know people across the board, from entry level all the way through to CISOs, who are unemployed, who it's taking months or years for them to get employed. I spoke to a lady the other day. She had a BSc and in computer science and an MA. She couldn't find work in cybersecurity, so she got a job eventually in IT. She's been in that for 5 years. She's desperate to come back into the industry, but finding it really hard. I spoke to a girl the other day. She's got an MA in intelligence. She's ready to give up on cybersecurity because each time she applies, she doesn't get anywhere. She's done internships, she's offered internships, but she's not getting a job offer. Again, there are many, many more examples that I can give you of men and women. It's not just a gender issue, but for me, when we hear about stats that we have low numbers of women or declining numbers, that is an issue and it's unacceptable. And actually the girl that I was speaking about a minute ago is an analyst, one of the highest skill sets that we need. The second challenge is marketing. And for me, when I look at this, There's so many issues going on here, but the first thing I see is that we are not marketing effectively. We're not being targeted with our marketing. Coming from a sales and marketing, a business development background, for me, I look at it in terms of profiling. So who do we want to attract? What do they look like? Where do they hang out? How are they speaking? And really getting specific about what they look like so we can attract them. With this, we have three buyers. We have CISOs, who have a completely different need to suppliers, consultancies, and vendors. And then we have employees. So typically what happens is CISOs tell me that they need creative thinkers, project managers, good communicators, those that can mostly deal with the stakeholders and the vendors. And then the suppliers have to satisfy the CISOs, so they are looking at being accredited. So because the CISOs will look and try to differentiate between them. And then the employees have different needs, and they vary in accordance with whatever level that they are. So we're not doing that. I've never seen anything that has gone on strategically and said we are marketing specifically to Gen Y or this level or this sex even. I haven't seen any of that. I've had a lot of conversations. Image is massively important. So most of the time when I speak to people, if they don't know about our industry and I say what industry I'm in, they'll say, oh, you've got to be really clever to be in that industry. And usually I say, actually, I know a load of thick people in the industry. There are many, many types in our industry. It has a perception of being nerdy, of being geeky, of being, you've got to be a super brain to be in it. This industry is so diverse. I love it because it's so diverse. We have people with Asperger's, autism, many of whom are pen testing or coding. We have people who are fantastic at encryption, super brains. We have good communicators. We have analysts who can examine the data. It is so diverse and it is so welcoming, and we are not getting that message over. We have so many different faces and we have a very large ecosystem. So we're not all techies in this industry. We're not all techies. So we're not doing a good job of showcasing what we look like. And that's even without bringing gender into it. So when we do approach this from a gender perspective, we need to show that there are women in the industry. So I'll just show you the next slide actually. So here we have perception is reality. So right now, typically with our industry, we know that we don't have many women in the industry. But by talking about this, it can put a lot of women off coming into our industry. If we were to flip this or to show this in a different manner as a strategic recruitment campaign, that would help. So instead of seeing one woman there, we were to show that there were more women there. So you are not alone. Because again, in terms of how we're wired, we don't particularly like to stand out from the crowd unless you are an entrepreneur or a rule breaker and things like that, which there are plenty of. But typically we want to feel welcomed and stay with the herd. So perception is reality. We need to show that there are more women in the industry. That will really help. Language is also important. Again, like coming back to that, who are we targeting? Are we doing a campaign that is for men and women, or is it specifically for women or for men of this generation or whatever? Language, certainly in the US, there's a lot of programmers language. When we are talking about language, typically we're talking about cyber warfare, taking down the bad guys. We're talking about, if we're posting job ads, we're using words like ambitious, leading, decisive, competitive, cyber warrior, and that's all language that is particularly attractive for men. Women need to have this brought into context. So we need to know why we're doing this, for the benefit of people, individuals, companies, countries, economies, and things like that. Things like that turn women on more than, talking about taking down the bad guys and cyber warriors. We know that from a lot of research that's been done. Words that are that women are particularly attracted to are things like support, interpersonal relationships, complementary. So we need to be very targeted with the language that we're using. And with everything that we're doing, we need to be testing the whole time, because nobody has got a perfect formula for this. It's let's see what's working. Let's test, let's retest, let's retest, let's retest. Let's get better conversion numbers and things like that. STEM, I personally feel that STEM is not good for our industry. Science, technology, engineering and maths. I believe that it needs to evolve into STEAM. The A is arts. Again, I know so many people from our industry that have come in from an arts background. I came in from art and design. I've worked in this industry for 19 years this November. I've been welcomed into it. It's a very welcoming industry. I love it. I feel very passionately about it. But I came in with art. I know there are plenty more like me who've come in from drama, from art or design or sociology or philosophy or law. There's just so many different aspects to this, and we need to be much more welcoming. Right now we have an issue with regards to barriers, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But we need art, and one of the reasons why we need art is because we need to think creatively. Hackers can do this. They're all thinking creatively. They don't have any barriers. It's just like, can you get what we want? However you do that. In order to do a better job, we have to be able to do that, and that requires a creative thinking ability. So it's important that we welcome in those that have that, and some of those come from an arts background. If we look at the second most degree actually that is required or taken up in our industry, it's actually English literature. So again, I know so many who've come in with a language background. Some of them have gone into coding or other areas. One actually went in as a business reporter, writing reports, and then has moved into the industry and is being accredited. So we do need to welcome more in and get that creative thinking. Again, looking at the whole perception issue, we have to proceed with caution, because again, we can be tricky. As women, we can be really tricky. And in the UK, I think we are, again, I was going to say in the UK, I think we are slightly, I'm trying to choose my words carefully here. I think it's different. It's different in terms of the world. So some countries are very almost militant with some of this. They're less robust. I think in the UK we're fairly robust with all of this. We can take quite a bit. But this campaign here by IBM created an uproar to the extent that they had to pull it, because women got to Twitter and were very unhappy with the Hacker Hairdryer campaign that they run. So it is a case of proceed with caution. But give it a go. The third challenge is about standards and professionalism. And this is my son, my eldest son. He would kill me if he knew that this was going out or being videoed. But anyway, I'm going to tell you a story about my son. So he graduated in philosophy last summer. He got a first-class honours degree from Nottingham University. He is so bright that he took a Mensa test and he's got an IQ of 158. He was invited to join Mensa. He doesn't say that, and again, he would kill me for saying that. But I'm his mum, so I can do that. He got a job with a company, and he was really excited about that. He did an internship before graduating, and was very happy to go and move to Cheltenham and start this job. He was working 70 hours a week, and he was an efficiency analyst. And he wasn't being developed. So the company, he knew exactly what the business model was once he got there, and he could see that graduates were coming and going pretty fast. With no room for development, for him it was a dead-end job. On a low salary, away from his girlfriend who was in London, he just thought, there's no future here. I'm not going to be able to progress. I might as well hand in my notice, go and do my gardening job that would pay me the same amount of money that I had before doing this in the summer, and then look for a job that actually excites me and can develop me. with this generation, with millennials, and also the generation below it, the centennials, or the Gen Ys and the Gen Zs, it is so important to know that they need development, they need feedback. If you are not going to develop them, we can't keep them. And again, if you read a lot of reports about these two generations, companies will be frustrated because they are leaving after two or 3 years. One of the reasons why is that they are not being developed. There is also another issue that's going on with graduates compared to apprenticeships. That is, I don't know if I'm going to have time to talk about that, but it's, again, they have different needs, they've got different cultures, one is working better than the other. So again, it comes back to the university side of things in terms of, are they preparing them for the workplace? I've gone into companies and companies have told me that actually graduates were not even completing the application forms. They didn't know how to answer basic interview questions like, why would you like to come and study here, to work here? Which is a basic one. It's like, come on. So they're not being prepared for the workforce. So back to my son. So he said, so he did all this, and he said, came back at Christmas time last year, and he said, Mom, I feel like leaving. I'm doing all this work. I'm not getting anywhere. They're not going to develop me. And I said, okay, let's have a chat about this. So don't hand in your notice, whatever you do, don't hand in your notice. Let's have a look at your CV, let's figure out what you want to do. And I said, what about, so he said he wanted to he wanted to be with good thinkers in an environment that would develop him. He wanted to earn lots of money. He wanted to have a family at some point and be around for his children. And he's a very good thinker, and he's a very good communicator. And he's very all-round, actually, so he's very skilled in terms of the STEM side of things, the maths and physics and all of that, and the English. Quite unusual, actually. But he did that, and we had this conversation, and I said, well, what about our industry? What about cybersecurity? And he said, absolutely no way. I said, I don't have a degree in IT. And I said, look, it's not an issue. People like you are needed. So he said, okay, you'll tell me more about it. And I said, he said, how would I get into it? How would I start? How would I progress? I knew he wasn't a techie. I knew that he wasn't a pen tester. He's just not like that. And so for me, he would be much more management or consultant. I couldn't actually tell him what that looked like. And I thought, okay, right, fine. I've only been in the industry for 18 years. Let me go and ask my CISO friends, what does it look like? And they couldn't tell me either. And I understand why they can't tell me, and I understand why I need to remain flexible. But the issue that we have is if we are competing for hot talent, we need to be able to have some route there to be able to explain it and show what it looks like. Because we're out there competing with law, with not economics, with law, with banking, with potentially teaching and accounting. We need to pull these people in. Those are kids who have transferable skills who can come and work in our industry. We don't want them to have them. Accounting is a dying sector. It's being replaced by technology. Let's get them into tech. Let's get them into cybersecurity. But in order to do that, we have to be able to show what it looks like. Accreditations are a huge issue. There is definitely a place for accreditations, but right now I really do feel like it is the tail wagging the dog. There's such an issue with job ads and things like that, so there's a big emphasis on accreditations. Again, when I spoke about the MA graduate, I had her saying to me, do you think that I should go and do a CISSP course? And I said, absolutely no way. There's no point. You don't have any experience. It's a waste of your time, and it's a waste of your money. The other thing with that is that it's really for those who have been in the industry for 4 or 5 years. So it's not serving the purpose. In terms of employers looking at these things, all they're going to see is someone who's got qualifications but hasn't got the experience. So most of the time, that person isn't going to get any further on. They might get a little bit further up the ladder in terms of an interview, but most of the time they're not going to get anywhere. So it's a waste of time doing things like that. But invariably, graduates and people looking to get into the industry or finding it hard to get a job will ask me, should I go and get an accreditation? Challenge 4 is recruitment. And with recruitment, again, all of these are huge challenges, but there are some quick wins that we can make. With recruitment, there are 3 stakeholders. We have recruitment agencies, and I don't think there are any recruiters in this audience. Are there any recruiters in the audience? No. I love asking this question because usually there are. And recruitment agencies, what can I say about them? There are a few that are good. Usually it comes down to individuals, and usually I can name them on one hand. I'm sad to say that, but it's usually the case. They need to up their game. They are just not doing a sufficient job. They are being lazy. They are doing keyword searches. How many times do I get asked about coming to be a pen tester at a company? I've built a pen testing company. I've managed pen testing teams. I am not a pen tester. And my LinkedIn profile says that. You know, it's just like, come on, don't be an imbecile. Go and read my LinkedIn and stop being lazy. And so I can throw that back at them, and I can also throw it back at their managers. Why have you not taught them to do this properly? And like I said, there are a few that are good, and there are some companies I'm hearing more than others who are doing a better job, but they need to do a better job. It's terrible. The second stakeholder really are human resources. So most of the time when I speak to CISOs, they will tell me that human resources get in the way, they block. They'll say, I've got a window of opportunity here. It might be 3 months. Please help. Very occasionally, I speak to HR departments who are doing a good job, and I have come across a few, and they will be in the book. But most of the time, they're blocking. They are incredibly powerful, and they are not helping us to do the job that we need to. And then we have hiring managers. Hiring managers typically haven't been taught how to hire, and they don't know how to interview. And really, if you want to look at increasing gender diversity, all these areas are areas where we can really make inroads. So just to give you something, I don't know if any of you have heard of this riddle or seen it before. I'm going to say it to you. So a father and son are traveling in a car. The father, there's an accident. The father is injured. It's fatal. The ambulance arrives, takes the son to hospital, and when the son gets there, the surgeon says, I cannot operate this son. This is my son. Who is the surgeon?
It's the boy's father, but a priest was driving the car.
Seriously. I love you for that. But this is, do you know what? That is the beauty of this. Every time I say it, it exposes several things. It exposes unconscious bias, and it's a reference point. So I think it's 19% of surgeons in the UK or US. I'll have to check figures, but it's roughly about that. So most of the time, our reference points are surgeons are men. So it's no wonder that we think like that. I didn't get this at all. Said it's so many bright people, and the creativity that comes out every time I say this is just so much fun. But the other thing that it demonstrates is diversity of thinking. And that's what's needed. If we want to up our game, then your answer is just as much right as yours. We need that diversity of thinking. And usually what I find when I ask this is there are the reference points according to gender, and that is different in accordance with the countries involved. But it also can show the difference between a more technical thinker and a more creative thinker. That's what's beautiful about it, and that's what we need in this industry. So no wrong answers. This is what we need. So when everyone's banging on about equality and things like that, we actually don't want. At the moment, we've got inequality with this first picture here, where everyone's standing on boxes, little person can't see the game. Then we have got a solution whereby a couple of boxes stacked up. So if this little person is the minority or the woman, they can see over. What we have in security in our industry is we have an issue whereby a lot of men are feeling bypassed because there are the metrics or the goals and targets, because more companies are saying we've got a 40% or 30% goal or target to increase gender diversity in the workforce. And some men are feeling bypassed, and then some women are thinking, I got that because of my own merit, not because I'm a woman. So don't look at me thinking like that. So we have a really challenging workplace issue to solve right now. What we are after is the third box, when nobody feels they're getting special attention, and what we have is best person for the job. Because whilst I go on about all of this gender stuff and women in the industry, what I'm really trying to do is help the industry. Help the industry to mature. It's still really young, it's new, it's been born from IT, and by doing that we'll get more women into the industry. This is a people thing, not a woman thing. Confidence and competence is massively important. I'm doing a study at the moment actually, and it would be really interesting to see the results of that. I can see some at the moment. But again, when it comes to recruiting for jobs, a lot of talent is there, but some are not putting themselves forward for the jobs. So I was speaking to a company the other day, and they said that they went internally for actually the position, and the person who got the job knew about the job. She was actually from a sales background. She'd been with the company for years. She knew all the products and services. She could communicate, she could negotiate, and the job that was required for this particular hiring manager was really a stakeholder, someone who could liaise with vendors and suppliers. And she said to her, why have you not put yourself forward for this job? And the woman said, well, I didn't think I'd get it, and it's cybersecurity, I don't do that. She said, you've got all the skills required. So she encouraged her to apply for it. She did go through the whole process, and she did get the job. So for us out there, when we're looking at talent, it's about being vigilant. It's about looking really at the skills that we need instead of looking at, I want 2 to 3 years experience. In some cases, we don't need that. In some cases, we do. But what can we do in terms of supporting and developing that talent internally? Just like when I talk to my friends who've been in the industry who are in their 40s, let's say, and I say to them, look, we all came into this industry when we were in our 20s. We got in, we were welcomed. Many in the industry got in with a few qualifications, a few lousy grades, and they're in top positions now. Why are we putting the barriers up? When we need talent, when we've got a shortage, supposedly, of talent, why are we putting the barriers up? Why are we not looking at this in a more comprehensive way? And we can do that through methods, through things like blind auditions, through processes, and through technology. So blind auditions are really interesting. Has anybody seen the, oh gosh, what's that? That music program that's on? It's on ITV, and they do blind auditions, and they all, you got will.i.am. Who's that? The Voice. Okay, they do that. So they can't hear the singer. They don't know what they look like, but all they can hear is the sound. So do they like the sound? There was a survey done in, I think it was Boston Philharmonic Orchestra, and they were convinced that they weren't recruiting based on gender. When they put a curtain in between, so they couldn't see who they were actually recruiting, all they could do was hear the music. They increased the numbers of women in the orchestra by 35%. 35%. And they were convinced that no, they weren't doing that at all. It didn't matter, it's just about the music. 35% increase. We can do things like this in our industry quite simply. So challenge 5 is about the workplace culture, and this is the hardest, and this is going to take years to change. So we have Howard and Heidi. Howard and Heidi Rosen is a case study that's taught at Harvard. And essentially what we have is students are presented with the two individuals. They're both, in fact, there's one person. The person is Heidi. The real person is Heidi, a real life example. But this particular person, whether it's Howard or Heidi, is highly networked. They've built a company before. They're friends with Bill Gates. They used to know Steve Jobs. They sit on boards. They're a pretty awesome, amazing person. When the students are asked to rate either one of them, Howard is someone that they want to work with. He's competent and efficient and amazing. But with Heidi, they don't like her. They can see that she's competent, but she's not. They don't want to work with her. They don't want to employ her. They don't like her. She comes across as being selfish. And what that demonstrates is that in most cases, leadership is still being viewed as a male thing. Women are supposed to be nurturing, and they can't be competent and likable at the same time. So we have that issue to address, which will take time. But for me, what I say is, this is really where I think we are now. So when I stand up at events and present, I'll talk about, I'm a woman that built a 7-figure global penetration testing company. I don't particularly want to say I'm a woman that did that. I'm a person. But, and here's an example, the reason that I do is not to be arrogant or boastful or anything like that, is to show that it is possible. I'm standing up as a woman saying, you can do this too. It doesn't matter what your sex is. And being a role model, an approachable role model as well, because there are many women out there in our industry who are not visible, and if they are visible, who are not helping people, whether it's men or women, out there in the industry. So many times I get approached to mentor, and so many times I hear from people who say, wow, you've replied to me, that's amazing, I didn't think you would. Why would I not? It's not acceptable. So we need visible role models and more women to show that we are in the industry. We also need more mentoring and sponsoring. So the mentoring can help with development, and the sponsoring can actually help with getting them into jobs. So again, challenging and saying, I've got a job for you, or I know someone who is, let me introduce you. Things like that can really help. So what next? Okay, well, there's loads to do. So there are 4, I'm pretty much wrapping up here. There are 4 important shifts that are happening for us, and these are going to happen over the next 10 years. The first is that technology is going to advance at speeds that you have never witnessed before. I'm so excited about this. By 2025, we're going to have 5 billion people online. 75% will come from emerging countries, markets. And we're going to have over 50 billion connected devices. Technologies will increase. We're going to have more mobile, more Internet of Things, and more cloud. Because the cloud will be there, we'll be all connected. We're going to have the ability for creating global infrastructures upon which services, resources, and applications can be built. Because of that, it will enable us to work in different ways. So theoretically, and this is happening in other sectors, other markets, we're going to be working more on project-by-project basis. We could be working by the hour. We're going to be competing with the world. So it's going to be a very interesting environment that we're going to live in. Artificial intelligence is already coming, and machine learning. So we had the DARPA challenge in the States the other week. So interesting. I find it fascinating. I really do. But it's also a threat to us. So what is really important is that we are aware of that and we carry on learning. This brings me on to the second point. Education is going to grow. Our needs are growing. So by 2025, we're going to have 262 million enrolled students at universities all around the world. And a lot of them are going to come from emerging markets like China and India. We're going to have online analytical and adaptive learning methods, which is really exciting because we're going to be able to do a better job of actually teaching. So many of the courses are going to be free. Many of them will be massive online courses. We're going to have so many different learning methods, and we're going to be able to tailor courses in accordance with graduates' needs. So if they're more kinesthetic learners or auditory or visual, we're going to be able to satisfy them in that way and do a better job of analyzing what their competences are. We are going to have 20 million STEM graduates, mostly from emerging markets. I think it's 16 million by 2025. That's to me, it's just like, wow. It's incredible to think, for me, that most of those are going to come from emerging markets. In terms of the third shift is all to do with demographics and longevity. So by 2025, 850 million people will be over 65 years old. So at the moment we have developed countries who have declining birth rates due to increasing female educational, personal choice and enhanced child medical provisioning. We've got aging populations, so people are living longer. And some of those people are going to be reliant, they're going to be retiring, and they're going to be reliant on people working. And then some of them will also have to work because their pensions have been affected due to the financial crisis. So we have a big issue with regards to this. And in a workplace, it's going to change the culture because more of us are going to be out there having to not just look after our children, but look after our aging parents as well. So the workplace is going to have to adapt in order to satisfy that because we've got more older people. And the emerging markets, they've got the reverse. So they have high birth rates and more working adults. So when you bring all these things together, along with the last shift, which is about globalisation, the world is more joined up by 2025. We're better connected. We are consuming and developing low-cost and thrifty innovation that is coming from all of these emerging countries so that we can do things faster and cheaper. And then we've got India and China growing these massive talent pools. The other thing that we have is an issue with resources. So we have an issue with consumption of resources, and as a result, the costs are going to increase and people aren't going to be as mobile. So we're going to be slightly more isolated, but we're going to be able to work because we're connected. So all of these things are coming, and what's important is that you're aware of those, because to know where you are now and to know what's coming can affect the choices that you make. I'm going to end now really with something that I want you to imagine. Having heard what I've said today, I really want you to imagine a world whereby we are not looking at people based on gender, on age, on ethnicity, where we actually look at people as being people. Because whilst I talk about gender, this is a people issue. We need to free men up as much as we need to free women up. And if we're to move and change things, then men are the key for all of this. We have 90% of our industry is men. Things aren't going to change unless the guys get on board. And when the guys do get on board, it's going to help them because they're going to have a different working environment. It's going to be much more fun with women in the industry. But it's going to change things. And I'm very excited about that. And I really want you to imagine a world whereby there are more of us working together. And we've got more balance. And we are not looking at people based on how they look. So, if you want to find find out more about this, then I have got the book. There's a link here to the book. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. If you're not already connected, please do that. My address is there. I will communicate. I always do that, so please do. And if you can reference, if you've heard this, if you do that, just reference that you heard me speak here. That would be great. And if you want more information, then just reach out to me. My email's there. Thanks very much.
We got any questions for Jen? If you'll take questions.
Yeah, no, I do know.
It's not such a question, it's more a bit of interest for you. I don't know if you know about it already, but the microbit scheme that was introduced into schools to help everybody start coding. I don't know what the take-up has been, but it would be interesting to feed that in as well.
No, thanks for that. Yeah, I don't know about it. There are so many schemes. There's so many, and
but it's giving it all 11-year-olds a little microcomputer essentially.
Oh wow!
A platform to
so like the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah. A similar thing, just a little tiny board. But the idea is that they will do that every year now, so every 11-year-old will get
Brilliant.
that. And so that's
look at
seeing both boys and girls who kind of take it up. But it's a matter of carrying it on, isn't it? It's great giving them it, and then where do you go from there?
This is it's again my daughter. She was taught all of the coding when she was in the junior school, but when she went into secondary, it all stopped. It's just like, why? You've done all that great work. So it's that follow through and normalising it. So making it normal.
I think it's a step in the right direction, but it's getting a lot of buy-in, and especially from the teachers, and as you've shown that different teachers have different opinions, and it's their job to drive it forward. And obviously, if you get someone who's not interested, doesn't know, then
This is it. This is it.
To push it.
Yeah.
The platform is there.
Yeah. No, thanks. I'll look at that. Thank you.
I just wanted to find out if there are any sort of mentoring schemes for different age ranges and how to get involved in that sort of area.
Yeah, there are. There's one that is being piloted at the moment. If you email me, I'll sort you out. So, yeah, it's so important, mentoring. Yeah.
As a mentoring thing, what sort of kind of view, speaking of people, university students instead of people actually in the industry going to schools? Because sometimes, people in the middle might understand, I don't know, somewhat bit in the middle of what kids want rather than everyone I guess.
So I don't understand.
So I go into a few primary schools and I speak to them, and they seem to connect with us a lot more than they would with the teachers or people in the industry, for example.
Because you're younger.
Yeah, or just not younger. I mean, just sometimes they're like, sometimes come out with more things.
You raise a really good point actually, because say I went into one company and so it wasn't in the schooling, but they were talent spotting. So they were going and having 15-minute conversations with those that had been identified in the company as potential high flyers. And what they were picking up on was actually some people were not approaching their managers because they were afraid. They were too high up. So it's almost like that you're near enough and approachable so that I can do that. So it is. And the other thing with mentoring that is really important to know is that mentoring is a two-way thing. So I mentor a lot, but I learn as much from my mentees as they do from me. Sometimes it's more, but it's really a two-way thing. So it's not one is the guru. Both of the gurus, they both share. Yeah. Yeah.
Just an observation here, but there's an awful lot, I haven't offended anyone here, but there's an awful lot of ex-military people in cybersecurity, and that is a real barrier for them because of their culture, because of what's been drilled into them over the years. And I think if we can somehow break them, somehow get to that group of people, I think that would make it easier.
You raise a really good point there. So many of them are institutionalized. So right now we have a big drive with the armed forces, get them in all over the world. And it's great. I love working with them. They're amazing, fantastic skills. But invariably what I will hear is that out-of-the-box thinking. They're so institutionalized that all they can do is take orders and follow protocol and things like that. And there is a need for that in our industry, but there's also a need not to. So to challenge and think creatively. And some of them can make that change and be less institutionalized than others. But it comes back to that. If we're the whole STEM thing, if we're trying to get the same type of person, whether that is those from the services or those with STEM, you're going to be just like focused like that on, and then someone who comes in who may have done art or drama or whatever, but can think well, because that's what we want. We want good thinkers, and comes in and says, yes, what about that? And everyone's kind of going, oh yeah, didn't think about that. So just like the example with the unconscious bias, it's that beauty of diversity that enables us to be better. So if we just go for the same type, that's a huge issue. It's a threat to us. In our industry, we're so varied. We need to be really diverse with who we welcome in. What's important is we have good thinkers.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Jane.